Frontier News.
From the furthest reaches of the universe to the innermost depths of the mind, this is Final Frontier News.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Final Frontier News. It's been a while, but we finally are back. And going forward, I want to get back to the structure that we've had in the past. You know, I think we really executed some wonderful episodes when we first began this whole thing. And then over the last 2 years, we've really thrown out, you know, here or there spottiness. And so I hope with the help of you guys who are patrons on Patreon, we can sort of highlight those topics and get to what you guys want to hear us talk about. I want everybody to remember that on Final Frontier News, you know, it's mainly about potential conspiracy cover-up and, of course, science news and things like that, speculations and some facts along the way as well. Less of a political show. If you want the political show, you know, me and Dave will work on that next, I suppose. But it is great to be back here, and I want to welcome in the devious one, Devious Dave Rose. What up, Dave?
Hey, Joe. Glad to be back. Glad to be doing Final Frontier News.
So, on this episode, there's a lot of things sort of to talk about, and you sparked it by sending me some Mars photos earlier. But there's lots of things, from the validity of the imagery we see from Mars, from the moon, from what NASA shows us in space. We've seen on live streams objects, UFOs, and when we see many of those things, the feeds go down, which is very strange, because if there's nothing to be seen, why are they taking the feeds down? You know, why don't they just leave them up and say, well, no, it's a this or that? But they take it down with no explanation. A lot of times, mostly, there's no explanation. There's also been this sensation with Mars photography, and oh my God, there's a man on Mars, or look, a house on Mars, or look, a ball is on Mars, or whatever. There's just so many videos, sort of conspiracy photographs and things like that. So what you sent me earlier was, you know, what looked like obvious pictures from Earth that were made to look like Mars. Why don't you sort of lay that out first before I ask questions, follow-up questions to that?
Okay, well, the images that I sent to Joe are essentially from Devon Island. This is an island just south of Baffin Island in the high Arctic of Canada, where NASA actually has two sites, one for a lunar outpost, testing equipment and materials and techniques, as well as another site where they test out the Mars rovers. Now, many of the photographs that have come out from, that NASA says are from Mars, from this particular Mars rover mission, actually bear a very striking resemblance to Devon Island and its landscape there. Now, very interestingly enough, from these photos, many people have found anomalies, some sort of image, some sort of object that they found very odd in the image that didn't fit, or that created a lot of speculation, like that looks like a humanoid, that looks like bones, that looks like an animal. And once you start to actually analyze some of these photos, you realize that, for example, there was a photo taken that looked like there was a rodent on the surface of Mars. But if you actually do the research into the animals that live on Devon Island, you'll find that this little rodent thing is an identical match to what is known as an Arctic lemming, which is native to Devon Island.
Wow.
Then there's images where it looks like there's a bunch of bones. And again, with a little bit of research, you find out that these are whale bones, seal bones, animals that are native to the Arctic. So although it might look out of place because we're being told it's Mars, once you start to realize that these images clearly were manipulated and that they're taking photography from the Devon Island location site, it becomes very suspect as to why they would do that and where are the real images from Mars.
Well,
and
Could this be potentially the practice site where they showed the rover practicing on Earth, and then for fun they touched up the images to show what it would be like if it were Mars? Is it potentially that?
No, these are actual official Mars images.
Is there a way that we can sort of prove that potentially to the audience to say, look, here, go to NASA's page? You know what I mean? Can we actually 100% prove that to people?
Well, we already know that NASA stands for never a straight answer. So they will basically lambaste anyone that criticizes their photos, but these anomalies are there.
Right.
Thousands of people have analyzed them. Now, more importantly is that the color spectrum.
Well, but that's not what I asked. I asked, where can we go?
Can we prove it definitively? No, because unless we can actually get to Mars, we can't prove this.
No, but can we... I'm asking what location... What is the address of the picture on NASA's website where I can view it? Do we have that information, or can we get that?
Of course, yeah, it's available. Just look up the Mars rover photographs, and the current Mars rover that's operating on there, the MSL. You'll be able to find all the compilation of images that were taken, supposedly, from that item.
I'm only asking that because there are so many photos. There's thousands.
There are.
So I'm wondering... Because if I can pull up on NASA's website, which I am at right now, on the government's website of them showing their rover, and I can match these up to Devon Island, there is a massive...
People have already done that.
All right, so that's what I'm basically saying is I want to find... I don't want to just find a website that says, look at this, and they show comparisons saying that this came from the NASA website. I need myself to verify, like on NASA's website myself, that those are there, assuming they haven't been taken down after the exposure.
Oh, no, they're still up there. Basically, I'll send you the link right now, but this is...
And listen, this is going to be hard to do because this is something we're going to have to look through. And
this is actually old news, to be honest.
It really is. But
these photos were taken years ago.
Right.
But people immediately started to look at them because they're rightfully fascinated by another planet. And people started to compile all these anomalies, all these weird things that were showing up that technically shouldn't be existing on the surface of Mars.
Right. Yeah, and they're kind of exposing themselves dumbly, I suppose.
Now, is this to assume that all the photographs that are presented are from Earth? No. But the ones that anomalies have been found in that match, again, like the Arctic lemming, make you rightfully suspect what you're being shown may not be the full truth. Now, you know what's very amazing is that a lot of these photos actually, from the NASA website, actually show a more bluish sky.
Yeah.
And you'll see that in quite a few of these images. Now, we've always been told that Mars was deep red, that the sky was a dark red, and if you remember back to 1976's Mars Viking lander, initially when there was the teleconference, the presentation of the landing of the vehicle on Mars, for an instant they showed a photograph that had a blue sky, and it was instantly cut.
Right.
And then they eventually put up another photo which showed more of the sky that we're more familiar with, a very dark red sky. But if you start to actually analyze even a lot of the older photos...
Yeah, this one I'm looking at now is a very gray sky. You should see it. Unfortunately, Skype isn't showing you imagery, but I could recall you back and you'd see. But this is so blue, like it's so dark grayish. It looks like a overcast day on Earth.
And some of them are even lighter than that.
Yeah.
But there is something called a calibration wheel on all these... either landers or rovers, that basically what it does is it has like 4 colors. And what that does is the photograph that's being taken, it allows the people back at NASA to adjust the levels of the color accordingly to match them. So that they know, okay, that we know that this is blue, and this other rock shares that color, so that must be blue. So you can basically recompile the image using the appropriate colors to find out exactly what color the surface is, the sky, the dust, the rocks, and these color calibration wheels that are all on all these devices, always, when they're photographed, are always very off. the colors don't match. They're like, you can see the photograph of that wheel taken on Earth, then you see that same wheel that's taken from Mars, supposedly, but the colors don't match. So when you start to readjust the colors from the one that was supposedly taken on Mars to match the exact colors as we know that they exist when that thing supposedly blasted off Earth, we know that, you start to adjust it and you start to realize, wow, the sky really is blue, and the surface isn't this solid red color. There's dark grays, there's light pinks, there's blues, there's yellows. So basically, we already know from that these images, at least color-wise, are being manipulated. Question is why?
Yeah, and definitely a lot of stuff they've touched up. We do know about that. That's the first thing I can say. For anybody listening who's like, oh, you guys are crazy and produce the address of the images. How do we know this guy didn't just take a picture of Devon Island, then make it look like Mars, then say they put that up on the NASA website? Or someone didn't make a mistake or something, whatever the case. Well, fine, we can argue that later. But the one thing we do know is that most of the images of Earth that we see from space are fake. Like, almost everything is altered or fake. Like, none of it is authentic.
Many a time, they actually try to convince people that the images that they're showing are actual photographs when they're actual computer-generated images.
Yeah, and that's why, and by the way, people always wonder, where does this flat Earth stuff come from? Where does the flat Earth stuff, where does the questioning for that come from? Idiots, It comes from that. It comes from the fact that for every Jesus, I'm having a stroke. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So
yeah, that's one of Newton's laws of.
So if NASA puts out a image, I wonder if this applies, but if NASA puts out an image of Earth that's fake and continues to put out fake images of Earth, what happens is the reaction from many of those people is, wow, they're lying to us about something. What could it be? And that's part of where some of these people buy into the flat Earth stuff, because they're already faking this stuff for us. So what's the problem? It makes people question things because it's so obvious, and they keep doing it, and then they don't reference it that, oh, it's a computer generated image. Most of the time they never reference that. Sometimes in the very corner it's like, an artist's depiction or something, but a lot of the times they don't. They present it as fact. This is an actual image of the Earth from space, and it's not. And there's only like a couple pictures of actual Earth, I believe, and I think one of them's from the Apollo mission.
Supposedly, yes.
Yeah.
But remember, we've also moved away from using actual photographic film in favor of digital cameras.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that now anything can really be altered easily. But also, it's just the deception that's going on is creating the room for conspiracy and for kind of erratic thought. When you start telling people these kind of like lies, people start running with what the truth could be. But if you just came out and gave everybody the 100% truth, there would be less room for people to create their own conspiracies or own ideas about what's really going on.
It's speculation, really, because when you're not getting a straight answer, people's imaginations start to run wild, and they start to speculate, and rightfully so, because what would be the reason for NASA to do this?
Right.
Now, maybe they are on Mars. Per se, I kind of think they are.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
We're not getting the full picture, and it's quite possible that they are hiding something, and that's the reason why they put up images that are supposedly taken from Mars, so that they don't have to show the real ones.
Let's speculate number one. Speculation number one on this. For me, I'm going to give you my quick, and I'm going to try to be quick about this, but speculation number one of why we're not getting the images. And by the way, this is similar to the moon landing, right? NASA says we're going to the moon, the whole world's watching, everything happens. But the video feed doesn't work. It's impossible for us to get video feed from the moon. So
it takes about 2 minutes for the transmission to reach Earth with current technology.
Right. So let's pretend, though, that something went wrong or they couldn't get it. What would you do? Well, you'd say, well, we're there and we have some slight footage, but it's not really working. We need to have this footage. We need to have this blah, blah, blah. So NASA's backup plan is a studio where they fake the imagery.
And the reason to justify that as well is we've spent billions of taxpayer money on this.
Yep.
We can't just not give them something to see, or then they're going to ask us what the hell we've been doing with their money.
Right.
So if you can't make it, you fake it.
So that doesn't mean that they didn't go to the moon, though. It means they went to the moon, but they were unable to really give you the proof and give you the spectacle. So to give you the spectacle, they shot that stuff in the studio and they went to the moon. Or potentially they didn't make it to the moon, something went wrong, and then they still gave you the spectacle. It could be any one of those things, but the same thing could be happening here on Mars. They could not have all the images they want. Maybe we have trouble, for sending the signal of the images. Maybe there's stuff on Mars we just can't show people right now
Exactly.
because, so either way, we're there, but we can't tell the people this, and if we show the people anything, somebody's going to find out the truth. So we need to send images that are
They're called
dishonest.
sanitized images in the military parlance.
Right.
You
And
just remove certain images, and we've seen this even in the late 60s with, I believe they were called the Ranger probes that went to the moon. They took photographs that were later published and stuff, and there are areas of the moon that have been photographed that have been basically airwashed. Or
airbrushed. Yeah.
airbrushed.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, we've seen that.
That's
Yeah.
verifiable.
Yeah, you can pull. You can actually pull that stuff. You can see why I believe that for sure is because you can pull up live videos of that, of people who would broadcast their broadcasts of that, and they'll catch it, and you'll see the time, the video feed, and what happens is the video is raw video, and it's happening right there on someone's YouTube channel, and then later on NASA changes it, and you can see the change. And the person that made the video didn't doctor the video because it would be impossible to do what was done in the video originally, but it's not impossible to doctor it out. And in many cases, they put a black square over it. They don't even hide the fact that they're doctoring it, really.
They even do that with Google Earth. I mean, there's a lot of images that are taken from satellite that are airbrushed.
Right. And they'll be like, okay, and they'll say, and people would say, how do they get around that? How does someone not ask questions, at Google or wherever? Like, what are they, whatever. Well, Google gets clearance from the government, so there's a special area of Google that's allowed to take these photos of Earth because of security reasons. So Google has to work with the government to get these images. Whether it's their satellite or the government's satellite, the surveillance of people, it would be illegal. It actually would be illegal for Google to just do what they're doing. They have to work with the government. In fact, without some of these, laws like the Patriot Act and some of those privacy laws being kind of, we don't have privacy. Without that, we would be talking right now about Google wanting to map the Earth, but they have to get it approved by Congress and the people of America. But the reason why Google doesn't ever have to get the Google Map stuff approved is because we don't have any rights as far as surveillance goes. So all they have to do is work with the government. And as long as they're tied in with the government, they don't have to abide by the laws that we would think they would have to as a company because they're working with the government getting that clearance. And so then the government is actually effectively in charge. So they said, yes, Google, you can do this and we're going to be able to do all this stuff, but we have people in the government who are working in that area at Google. And on top of that, they're saying, but there are going to be some things, privacy and some things that we have going on in government projects.
It's
and other
national
things.
security. It's classified under national security. Like Area 51 has a lot of areas that are, sections that are airbrushed. Places in Antarctica, places in, there's Diego Garcia, for example, which is a military base in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
There are literally dozens of sites that Google has airbrushed. And that is regulated, obviously, by government rules because the government basically has to approve any sort of satellite that goes into orbit, which they then in turn have to work with the international community to make sure these things don't crash into each other and stuff. Because there's certain parking spots in orbit that are allowed.
Right.
And if you're using that, then you're basically under rules that you have to comply by.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine the mathematical specificness that they have to get into up there. Like the stuff that they do around the Earth with satellites is incredible. And people, that goes into the flat Earth again. That's the biggest thing that kind of proves the flat Earth wrong. It's very kind of understandable how satellites work, and people say, "Oh, well, your phones are it's all here on Earth and everything," and it's just impossible to get. These people don't understand line of sight and things like that. But while I say that, there are many questions that people that do Flat Earth have brought up, which are interesting and good arguments, and more information needs to be discovered on some of the questions that don't have answers right now. But much of it can be disproved. But so as far as Mars, I've seen other images from other planets faked as well. Because when you look at stuff with a pretty good telescope, the planets don't look like they do in all the images. Is there anything else as far as photos that you know about that is egregious as this?
There is the photos taken of Pluto, which was a few years back, and there's an area that they call the heart on the surface. Again, totally computer generated. Okay, this is not an actual photograph. Okay, no. Photographic film. It's computer generated, and the area that's called the heart, if you actually look at the character Pluto from Disney, it matches perfectly into that spot.
What?
It's too coincidental.
What are you saying? What?
Okay, so I'm guessing that you have never seen these photos or really looked into these images that we're, I guess, referring to.
Yeah, I've seen the Pluto, like the black and white images that they showed.
Well, there's a color image. Here we go. I'm going to just quickly send you this image. And this is just commonly referred to as the heart.
The red, white, and blue one, where it's like all colored?
No, actually, the photograph that NASA has put out of Pluto is basically sandy beige and dark browns. But the image that I'm just posting in right now...
Oh, by the way, I do want to say real quick to people listening on podcast form, I have also put this up as a video on Patreon. I definitely highly recommend you watch the video if you want to see these images, obviously.
And yes, it might sound a little speculative, but then again, though, when you take a look at the coincidental nature of this, and you look at these images for comparison, you start to actually see this. Now, we already know that this image is computer generated, okay? And yes, some of these probes do have digital sensors to photograph digitally and then basically break it down into bits, send it a very long way, finally gets received on Earth, and now you need you could call it a translator. I don't want to go into the technical terms now, but basically it will just recompile that image from all those bits and present you with that. So at that point, it's digitized, which means it's a lot more easy to manipulate these days. So, Joe, what do you think of the images that I just sent you?
Wow, that's pretty crazy. I'm looking at the Pluto one right now. It fits right in the face there. Let me just look at it a little bit more. Hold on. I'm pulling it up. I'm trying to blow the image up really high so we can put them up pretty big next to each other.
Now, some people might think this is grasping at straws. But there's just a little too much coincidence here. Now, we also know that Walt Disney worked hand-in-hand with Werner von Braun, who was in charge of the Saturn program, Saturn IV program, to launch men to the moon. And as we know, he was a former SS officer, so you've got to be considered high German and a very big patriot to be part of the Nazi SS. And we know that Walt Disney was a very big supporter of the Nazis. So he worked hand-in-hand with von Braun to basically push forward the agenda of space travel in the 1950s and 60s. So
wow, you know what's really, Dave,
joint.
I got to show you this in a minute. You know what's really telling about this is the nose. I don't know if you've seen. Let me hang up on you so I can call you back so you can see what I'm showing. Okay.
Okay.
You want to make this point though first? Because you're
interrupted. No, that's fine.
Okay, I'll hang up. This is incredible. What I'm looking at right now is the Goofy and the nose. There's a slight divot in the nose that you can a little tone of dark on the Pluto where the nose would be. It's kind of crazy. All right, Dave. Sorry. Why don't you make that point, and then I will continue on here.
And what point was it that I was making?
About the Nazis? I thought you had more to say. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, basically that because Walt Disney was working hand in hand during the Cold War with von Braun to basically push for the idea of space travel, which was to be part of a major part of the Cold War, there was a need and a desire to get everyone on the same page and to tell the same story. So Disney, with his master expertise to create film and create believable film, definitely has some suspicions cast upon him in regards to this. Now, that's a very interesting transition there.
Look at that. Now, here's the other thing I noticed about this. This is the very interesting part. Let me go ahead and... What happened to the picture? Why did it disappear? What the hell? Why did this image disappear? Oh, there it is. Okay. This is the interesting part that I wanted to show you about this. And I'm skeptical of this myself. That's why I'm doing this work here. So, do you see the image on the right now? Or the
yes.
one on the left? I guess it's on the left on your screen. Why is it reversed? That's weird. Is it in reverse to you, or are you seeing it the right way?
I see the one with the transposition of Pluto on the left, and I see the plain image on the right.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so it's my vision. So on the right, the image without Pluto in it, in Pluto, there's a darkness on the image that looks like his nose. So if I darken this a little bit, you see that dot? Kind of like where his nose would be. It lines up perfectly.
It actually goes off the screen for me, so I can't really see it.
It's a dark spot.
Oh, there we go. I just made it bigger.
This right where the nose would be, there's a dark spot there that I didn't notice. So it's actually lining up amazingly. That is wild.
Now, what's also kind of wild is I just sent 2 more other images to you, and you see a total different color spectrum for Pluto. So which one is it, NASA? We've got the same sort of heart shape, supposedly, there, but we've got one image that's dark browns and light beiges, and then we've got one that's like whites, yellows, and reds. So which one's correct, NASA?
Wow. This is crazy.
Now, the thing is, though, obviously this is speculation. Okay, we're not saying this is absolute fact, but A, we know one thing. That image is computer-generated. Now, maybe it's compiled from actual data taken from a probe.
But also some people like to leave behind messages or warnings or...
they're basically breadcrumbs or little sort of hidden truths and such. And there have been a lot of whistleblowers that have done exactly that, is to leave little bit of clues within their images to sort of get people to realize that there's something more that's not being displayed. This has happened multiple times with NASA images.
By the way, that image of Pluto comes from NASA, comes from space.com, comes from solarnasa.gov, nasa.gov originally. So I can verify 100% to you that unlike some of the other speculation about Mars we had earlier that, I'm sure we could prove soon, but we don't have the concrete proof right now.
I don't have the link, but I've already seen the proof.
Okay, so I believe Dave then. But this is NASA right here. This is coming from NASA's website. You can go find that out for yourself. That is almost undeniably, like absolutely, that image of Pluto on Pluto, which is got to be I'm telling you, man, something's up with that. Somebody did this, and why they did it, I don't know, but somebody's telling you something by doing that, because
NASA... It's too coincidental. That's the problem.
Right.
When you start to see coincidence start to line up, it just becomes too coincidental. How could it be that the planet Pluto strangely has an indentation or a space there that matches with what Pluto, the Disney character, would look like?
Right, and they didn't leave it vague enough. They didn't make it like Casper the Friendly Ghost on Pluto. You know what I mean? They didn't do something random that was completely ridiculous. That, they made sure it was Pluto, and that's like a verification. That's like it's the planet Pluto or the star Pluto, whatever we call it now. That's Pluto, and guess what? Here's Pluto. And who is friends with NASA and the Nazis? Disney. And it's like, dude, this is a clear, like, no, you're not just seeing a shape. Because if they'd done Casper or done anything else like that, or done like, Bugs Bunny or something, there would have been just people being like, it just looks like a cartoon character, whatever. You know what I mean? That could look like anything. You can do that with clouds. You can look up at the clouds and see something. That happens everywhere. But no, they did it specifically with Pluto to show you. You know what I mean? To say, guys, like, we're fake. This is being faked. I was asked to fake this. I was asked to make this image. So guess what I'm going to do? Maybe the person thought, I don't want to do this, or like, this is wrong what we're doing. And so they were like, okay, I'm going to do what they want, but I'm going to leave this little breadcrumb behind. And that
might also be just thumbing their nose at the public saying, ha, you don't know what we know. We're going to treat you like a bunch of idiots and you'll never even realize what we did.
Could be. It could be that. And and also could be to expose some conspiracy sites and things like that so they can monitor them.
Very true.
Like,
very true.
There's the 19 sites that know exactly what we did. Everybody else doesn't care, but look at those sites. Keep an eye on them. They're watching.
Or demonetize them, or silence them, delete their channel, remove them from Twitter.
Follow them, FBI, CIA, whatever. Spy on them, whatever. What else do they know, But pretty much they don't take anybody as a threat because they do this all the time. They just laugh at you. Because nobody believes or cares enough to look into it, or most people that do believe it will just say, yeah, I pretty much figured that. Oh, well. It's crazy. But it's the... Because none of those people matter. The people that go, oh, yeah, pretty much figured that, whatever, those people aren't a threat because they're just zombies. And then everybody else, 100% doesn't believe what we're talking about, so they never have to worry about them, and that's the general masses. So that's like 60% of the whole world just goes, what? I don't believe that.
Yeah, I don't care about that. Let me go back to my local sports team and my beer.
Right. And then the other 20% that say, I 100% believe they are lying and all that stuff, they don't care either because what are you going to do? You know what I mean? And then maybe there's like, then there's a few people out there that really obsess about it. And unless that number starts to grow or things start to, add up, they don't have to do anything. But they would be, they would make a mistake by not monitoring the people that are aware of the truth. So that's clearly what's happening here. This is some
they say the children.
Oh my God, Mark Dice just came on out of nowhere. But yeah, they are totally mocking in some way something.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's very important just for people to understand, yes, we are speculating.
Yeah, we don't know.
There is a lot of information that sort of proves this point. But even still, though, is that there is enough sort of suspicion to actively question it. There's nothing wrong with questioning something like that. And more importantly, we know that digital manipulation has already existed with NASA images. So what's going to stop them? Like what, why would they stop back in the 50s?
Well, what I want to say to everybody right now listening on YouTube is this portion of Final Frontier News is over, part 1. Please make sure you become a patron. If you guys want to hear these episodes, patreon.com/Joe Cronin Show. Please sign up on Patreon to support these. That's how we're going to continue doing Final Frontier News. So if you like this, jump over to Patreon, patreon.com/Joe Cronin Show, and you guys can listen to the rest of this episode and the future episodes. But you've just gotten a piece of this episode. So if you're on YouTube, get over to Patreon to listen to more and to listen to future episodes. But everybody else, we continue here. So yeah, this is crazy, interesting stuff. But I want to put up a Patreon graphic to end the other thing, because I don't want to edit later. You know what I mean? I'm lazy. I don't want to go edit this later. So I'm just doing it all live. Like, what's his name? Who's the guy on Fox who flipped out? O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly. I'm Bill O'Reilly. There it is. Patreon.com/Joe Cronin Show. Come support me and Dave. And anybody else who wants to be on Final Frontier News, please email or message me on Patreon or email joecroninshow@yahoo.com. Okay.